So you can imagine what a job that was. So usually if you knew somebody, you were not put on the list. But as we had just arrived, we had no contact yet, and we were of course put immediately on the list. So we were put, this you probably have all heard, on cattle trucks, terrible journey, and eventually after about 3 days traveling, we arrived, we jumped down, and we saw the sign Auschwitz, Auschwitz. And again, many people say, did you know? Yes, we did know. We didn't know exactly, because the BBC that broadcast out always started in da-da-da-da. I remember that very clearly. You were not allowed to foreign broadcast to listen, but the people had a little radio hidden in a cupboard, and we listened to that. And besides telling how the war was going, they always told about the death camps in Germany and Poland. And Auschwitz was the worst. So at that time, of course, we really had not much hopes that we are going to live the next few hours. So you can imagine, I was 15, my brother was 17, and my mother was 40, my father was 45. The next command was men and women to different sides, so this is when we had to say goodbye. It was a terrible scene. Everybody clung to each other because, you know, people thought this is the last time you saw each other on earth. And so then the women to one side, I stood with my mother, and Mengele stood there like a conductor with a little stick. He looked you over and said, this side or this side. At this time we didn't know, of course, what this side and this side meant. But again, through unbelievable luck, it's a more to it, but I'll just make it short now, because there's a lot more to tell. My mother and me went to one side, which turned out to be the right side. But all the young people, all the old people, old might have been 50, young might have been, I mean, I was 15, but even 15, 16-year-old went to the other side. At that time, of course, we didn't know what it meant. So our group of people walked into the camp, and as well they had, for instance, a trick, you know, and they were full of tricks. They said, if you're tired from the journey, we have trucks there, and it's about a 10-minute walk to the camp, you can go on the truck. So many young people even went on the trucks. But of course they never entered the camps, they went straight to the guest chambers. So then we walked into the camp, the next command, undressed completely naked, and the Nazis were walking around. You can imagine how we felt. And then we stood in line, all our hair was shaved, we all were tattooed, and when all this was going on, they told us what is happening with those people who had been separated. So can you imagine a mother had just given up her child, or a young woman had just been separated from her mother, and they told us they were going to have a shower, and they got soap and a towel even, and they walked in, and there were pipes, there's low buildings with pipes, and they expected wonderful, you know, after this horrific journey, to be able to get a shower. And people stood there and looking up when no water came, and they started to feel faint, and they couldn't breathe properly, and it became more and more difficult. They were dizzy, and they fell to the floor, and they were dead. And the Nazis looked up in peepholes, watched all that, and when everybody was on the floor, other people called Sonderkommando, special people who had to do this horrific work, had to come in and take the bodies away. And they told us this, and with big pleasure. They were smiling about that and said, oh, you just lost your child. Well, if you go outside, you can already see the smoke. So, you know, and this is, you know, when people say, have you forgiven? I said, no, I don't want to forgive. Because those people, I mean, this was not necessary to tell us, you know? But they really found ways of hurting us more than necessary. It was bad enough, but even to put all of other terrible things, mistreating and terrible things, which they did with great enjoyment. So then we were told, now you go to the shower. Of course we didn't want to go, but we were beaten into it, and we stood there clinging to each other, and water came out. So this was, of course, unbelievable relief. And then after this we went outside, and there were 2 heaps with clothes, and we were thrown one garment, and on the next heap were shoes. We were thrown 2 shoes, which was never, of course, a pair of shoes. And this was all our belongings. We never had anything, not even a piece of toilet paper. And I can tell you, you could use that, because we all got typhus and dysentery, cholera, terrible illnesses. Many, many people died from those illnesses. So how we survived is a miracle, because we were not supposed to survive. In the meantime, the Hungarian people, the Jewish people came, and most of those went immediately to the gas chambers. There were thousands and thousands of people arriving all the time, and we were just on hold till there would be no new transport. It would be our turn. But in the meantime, many, many, many people died anyway, from starvation, from illnesses, from beatings, from all kinds of things. So winter came, and became very, very cold. Snow was that high, and eventually in January the Germans became very, very nervous. We noticed something was going on. The camp wasn't so strict anymore, but they took every day many, many thousands of people out of the camp. Later, those were called the death marches. They said, you're going to go in a work camp somewhere in Germany. And many, many people volunteered even to go. They said, nothing can be worse than Auschwitz. If you go to a work camp, we are useful. But there was no work camp, and people were just marching for many weeks. Again, thousands collapsed on the roads. There were shot, starved, and so on. But of course, one didn't know anything about that. Again, by fluke, my mother and me didn't go on those transports. And one day we woke up, and the camp was very, very quiet, and all the Germans had left. And so basically, you know, we could have left the camp, but we were in Poland. We didn't know what the Polish people were going to do. We didn't know where the Nazis coming back, where the Russians coming. We had no idea, so we stayed put. Most people who had stayed behind, in Birkenau, there was Auschwitz-Birkenau. Birkenau was the women's camp. In the women's camp, there were about 300 women left. There was one barrack, which was really sort of a barrack where people were really very, very ill. Some never even got down from their bunks. And so my mother and me was one of those. She couldn't really walk. She could never have gone on any transport. And so I was one of the few people who could still walk around. It was very, very cold. Outside was a little pond where I went to hack ice because we had to have water. And we brought them to the people. Many still died. We had to take them out of the barrack. Again, I was one of the few people who could carry the bodies. We couldn't bury them because, you know, we had no tools in the snow, so we had to heap them up outside behind the barrack. So this is something I still always see in front of me. And then after about 10 days, and this is supposed to be the liberation of Auschwitz, you know, people ask, was there jubilation, what did you do? We didn't do anything, you know, we didn't know what is going to happen. So, and one day, about after 10 days, I walked around again, and at the gate, which was open, I saw a huge creature all in furs and with icicle all over him. And I thought first it's a bear, because it was very wild country still there in the winter. And, but when I looked closer, it was the first Russian soldier.